I'm Staicha. I'm from Northern Ontario. I now live in Hamilton, Ontario for the past 5 or 6 years. I own the Hearty Hooligan on Ottawa Street, and I am one of the owners of the People Under the Staircase on Dundurn Street North. What got me into punk music was very simply Halloween, because every single Halloween compilation you get, every tape you get has things like the Misfits on it, it has the Cramps on it, it's got Halloween by Dead Kennedys on it, and as much as I like really playful Halloween music, I always really liked Misfits and Cramps, and it became sort of like a gateway to punk music for me, where I wanted to find more stuff that sounded exactly like that. My main influences growing up were probably a mix of Pat Benatar, because I loved Pat Benatar so much. That was my first favorite tape that I had, and Poison Ivy from the Cramps, because Poison Ivy was the first really sexy redhead I saw. And so many iconic gingers were never the really attractive character that you wanted them to be, and Poison Ivy was just such a babe on stage, and she always had this kind of disinterested boredom that I was very, very drawn to. She was never she was not a people pleaser, she was so talented, and she was just bored of your shit all the time. And that was such a big influence for me. So the first punk show I ever saw, I'll do that one first, was just a collection of local bands. So being from Northern Ontario, that was mostly what you got to see, were just a bunch of other shithead teenagers doing shithead teenager things, like being in bands. So most of the punk shows that I saw before 2000 were just those all-ages punk shows. The first very big concert that I ever went to was Dillinger Escape Plan in Barrie, and Barrie was hours away, and that was the first big group of metalheads that I was ever around. It was the first mosh pit I saw that was on that scale, because everything before that was just small scale punks up north. So I'll give you a top 3 for my favorite shows. The first one is the first time I ever saw Cannibal Corpse. So Cannibal Corpse has always been one of my favorite bands. But again, from up north, you don't exactly see that stuff all the time. So the first time I got to see them was at Heavy TO in 2010 or 2011. And I did all the stereotypical things like smuggling in booze, which was really dicey, because I remember I had one flask hidden in the bottom of my purse, but the other flask I remember I stuck in my bra, and you're patted down before you go in, and I remember the security guard went to pat me down, so I just gave him the stink eye, so he was already really uncomfortable patting me down, and I was like, I'm gonna perpetuate this. And I remember he went to poke in like my chest, and I just stared at him, and he poked the flask directly and then let me in. So to this day I was like, did he touch it and just was like, go and stop staring at me, or did he think that that was my diaphragm? Either way, I got in with the booze. There's security everywhere, so I remember I was so pumped up to see Cannibal Corpse for the first time, and I was just really like wired about it, and I was trying to find a place to take my illegal booze out, and I saw like a big pack of giant angry bikers who always really like me because I'm adorable and small. So I remember I just like helped myself into the middle of their circle and like pulled out this flask and poured it into my beer, and I remember them looking down at me and just being like, nice, and I was like, yes. So I had my illegal booze, I had my super happy biker friends, and then I got to actually see Cannibal Corpse live for the first time after listening to them for so many years. And because I am smaller than a lot of people, it was really easy for me to weasel my way to the very front. And I remember, of course, by the time you're up there, you're sardined between so many people. So there was a guy in front of me, and I was like pushing my face through, because I was like, oh, like, so help me, Alex is gonna see my face, and like hear me yelling at him. So I was trying to yell, and I'm not a quiet person, at the top of my lungs to be like, notice me. But I was just yelling all the songs. So at the end of the show, Nobody noticed me, by the way. But at the end of the show, we all disperse. I go to walk away. I'm with a group of friends, and the guy whose head was right here starts charging after me. And I remember being like, oh God, is he gonna kill me? Because I mean, I was screaming bloody murder at him the entire time. So he's just like, hey, you, the redhead. I'm like, oh God. So I'm trying to run away. But then he's like, hey, you knew the words to all of those songs. High five me. And I was like, excellent. So it was just, and I mean, and the show was so good. It was a really, really good one all around. So I still think about that because I've seen Cannibal Corpse like 10 times since then, but that first time was just perfect. The other one is The Addicts, because I feel like everybody acts like they don't really like The Addicts or they're too cool for The Addicts. But what they don't realize is The Addicts have been doing what they've been doing for so long. So they know how to put on a killer show. So the first time I saw them was Montebello. And I remember the person I was with was like, I don't know, I feel like maybe a little too cool for The Addicts. And I was like, yeah, okay. After we saw them, even he was like, I gotta buy all their shirts and I've gotta buy all their stuff because The Addicts are really good at making you love The Addicts. So it's so theatrical, it's such a spectacle. Everyone in the crowd gets super involved. Like they're really good at crowd engagement, which is huge for bands. And you know, they've got like big giant beach balls in the crowd. They've got, you know, streamers coming out in the crowd. They're throwing glitter at you, and it's amazing. So a show I recommend to everybody. If you can see The Addicts, see The Addicts. And then the third one, Iron Maiden, hands down. Iron Maiden is one of my favorite bands on this earth, but I've seen other favorite bands, not naming names, Judas Priest, that I was maybe a little disappointed in live, but Iron Maiden, it was theatrical. And I remember I brought a friend who had never seen a metal show. Super adorable farm girl was like, I guess I'll go with you if you have a ticket left, and was like, I need to download all of the Iron Maiden. But I mean, it's amazing. You come in, you've got a plane, you've got like just giant light shows. It's a spectacle and amazing. So it was one of the tours from right before COVID, so maybe 1 year before the world ended. And just, yeah, fantastic. I remember feeling like it was 5 minutes. I was like, was that really an hour and a half? But yeah, it was honestly one of the best shows I've ever seen. 10 out of 10 would see it again. I would definitely be forced to say that things have improved for women in the scene, but only because the bar is so aggressively low. So I've watched a lot of documentaries on, you know, punk history and metal history, and one documentary I saw on the Vancouver punk scene was absolutely shocking. And I know some of the female friends I have who are older than me have horrific stories about being a woman in the scene. So it's not to say that, I mean, I guess we can celebrate, but we definitely have a long, long, long way to go. One of the biggest things that really bothers me about our scene in the GTA is a lot of the slut shaming that I see from men in the scene. So when you have, you know, for example, female performers coming in, there's a lot of double standards that we have for them that we don't have for, you know, male performers. And it's the same thing with just people that you're at shows with, and standards they hold women to that they don't hold men to, and I think it's disgusting. So that being said, I think maybe because of that, I really appreciate the camaraderie that I have with other women in the scene. I love the women in the scene here. I think it's amazing to have so many cool pals. I feel like we really look out for each other. I mean, we've all got stories about how we've kind of had each other's backs at these shows. It sucks that it has to happen, but it's really nice that we all have each other. So things have definitely gotten better, but again, the bar's so low that I'm always tripping over it. And that would be one of the biggest things I would like to see improve, is just men in the scene holding men and women to the same standards. So I'm pretty sure I saw one of the singers of Dead Kennedys die live. So one of the people who wasn't Jello, so whatever. So I was at Amnesia, and seeing Dead Kennedys, and I was right front row center, because again, I'm small, so I get places. So this guy, I really wish I could remember who it was. I can't. But he was, I mean, really giving her. Crowd was super into it. But you could tell he was like 3/4 of the way through, just getting really, really, really exhausted, and his face was going really red. And I remember being like, I mean, I'm super happy to be here, but like, dude, you can like calm down a little bit, it's fine. And then at some point, maybe like, let's say 3 songs to go, because I was right up in the front, I saw him super red-faced go off the side of the stage and fall down beside the stage. So he just fell down, and the mic was there. The band kept playing, and you could tell they were kind of looking around like, what do we do? Do we keep playing? I guess we keep playing. And the crowd was kind of like, what's happening? So the song finishes out without the singer. And then we're all waiting and like, okay, what's gonna happen? And then he got this, second wind, like a big surge of energy, got up, ran into the crowd, was like jumping on the crowd, had mics in people's faces, but then the face got real red again, and then he went behind the stage and disappeared, and no one ever saw him again. So the show ended early, and we all just dispersed. So, no idea what happened to him. Hope he's okay. So the Hearty Hooligan started about 5 years ago when I was working in a vegan bakery in London. People kept coming in and being like, oh, this place is so cool. And I remember being like, no, it's not. It was a really foofy place. It was really pink and teal. And everybody was like, oh, this place is so cool. And I was like, this place sucks. What do you mean? I had already been vegan for like 10 years when I was working there. So I was like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. You can get vegan food, but like, this place isn't awesome. And I remember like I would always try to play a lot of punk there. But the clientele was more just like, oh, like this isn't Drake. And I was like, oh, whatever. So I sort of promised myself I was gonna make a vegan place that when people walked in and said it was cool, it actually would be. And I carried a lot of the values that I have into creating a place like Hearty Hooligan, which is that I hate salads, I hate yoga, I hate healthy stuff, really. I'm just a trash bag, and I like trash bag things. So from my opinion, I was like, if you could just drink beer and eat pizza pockets and it was vegan, like why wouldn't you? Because if someone was like, yeah, you've got to eat salad all the time, I'd be like, fuck, okay, well that sucks. So that's why the Hearty Hooligan is so anti-salad. But it's also just a really laid back stoner vibe. You've got your cartoons and your junk food, and it's really low key. And because of that, we have a giant non-vegan following too, because it's a really good place to go just to be like, well, I'm not vegan, but no one ever gives me shit about it. I just want a nacho burrito and, a beer and to watch The Simpsons. So it's really gone over incredibly well. I couldn't be more proud of how the Hearty Hooligan has turned out. And I really feel like it's become such a big staple in Hamilton. I don't know how that happened, but really, really grateful for all of the success it's had. And it's so at home in the East End as well, being so close to so many friends, like Crash Landing is right there, you've got all your buddies kind of on one corner. And it's just a really cool alternative place that proves that, yeah, you can be trashy as hell and just eat some vegan food and go home about it. And then after so I guess it would have been right before the 4-year anniversary of Hearty Hooligan, this gigantic, beautiful place called the Staircase Theater was going up for sale. And this was a response to COVID. So I was getting a pizza one day at my friend's pizza joint on James Street, Rise Above Pizza. And he and I were talking, and I was like, oh, hey man, did you see that, Staircase is getting sold? And he was like, oh, like that giant theater? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, that sucks. But we'd always kind of talked about doing something together. Like we always talked about, maybe one day we should own a place. And I was like, hey, maybe we should approach them about it. My friend Mark, the guy who owns One Up Games, is friends with the owner. I also know the owner, but I haven't talked to him in a while. Maybe we should just approach them and, see if maybe we could do something there. And he was like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, can't hurt. We could, fill it with some horror stuff and call it People Under the Staircase. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. We've got to do that. So we met up with the owner. And we were basically like, hey, like I know that, some big pharmacy offered you 1.4 million, but can we just have it? And they were like, yeah, okay. more or less. So the staircase is really the ultimate expression of human audacity. So that was, I mean, really, it was them wanting to keep it as an arts hub. So, you know, this day in Hollywood is gone, heartbreaking. So many places we loved are up in the air, and I was like, you know, this place has, you know, this gigantic venue area. It has a movie theater. It's got a restaurant space. It has another venue downstairs. There's so much potential with it. So we kind of cobbled together an arrangement where we sort of took over the business, but kind of changed it a little bit, enough that I was like, hey, can I make your theater a theater and your restaurant a restaurant? And then the upstairs, the stage that I'm sitting on wasn't here. It was more for weddings, but I don't fuck with weddings. So we more just want to do, you know, shows up here. We put in a patio. So things have been going really, really well. And it's just another part of that, like, yeah, it's, you know, vegan, but it's just like this cool, greasy junk food. Just eat it and be happy. So that's been going super well, and yeah, it's kind of like whether you're in the East End or the West End, I'm here to feed you. So Steve is going to do a nice big tour of the staircase because, as I mentioned, it's a 4-story building and there's so much to it. So Steve's been nice enough to offer to do a little bit of a guided tour for everybody. can't stress with words how strongly I feel about spaghetti. Spaghetti is my favorite thing on this planet. Not just my favorite food, it is my favorite thing on this planet. So anyone who follows me on Instagram, I have a highlight reel called Spag Life, because I always tell people that I eat spaghetti every single day. And people are like, ha ha ha, yeah, probably not every day. And I'm like, no, every day. I eat spaghetti every single day. So and it's been my favorite food forever, since I've never had a different favorite food. So I started on Instagram showing people my everyday spaghetti. And then showing things like, I have the old Hulk Hogan Pastamania shirt. I've got just old spaghetti box pictures on my fridge. I buy spaghetti by 40-pound boxes. Spaghetti is my favorite thing on this planet, not even just my favorite food. So this won't seem impressive unless you see it, so you almost have to picture it in your mind. I can strain a family-sized pot of spaghetti with one fork and never miss a noodle. So because I'm a lazy sack of shit and eat spaghetti every day, I really don't want to do a million dishes. So I've gotten very, very good at having my whole pot and just balancing one fork to strain all the water out of any kind of pasta really, but spaghetti is my favorite one. Macaroni is a little harder, but I just kind of cradle a spoon and I can get all the water out perfectly every single time.